everyone, I am Brittany the Cosmic Lunar Soul. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back to all my subscribers. Today I have a really large unboxing from Running Press Publishing. So you can see this huge box. I think it's like 2 months worth of stuff. So I figured I would do a huge unboxing. This will probably be posted in January, but it got to me in December. So let's go ahead and crack her open. Okay, so the first thing that I am going to pull out is the Dirt Gems Plant Oracle Deck and Guidebook. This is by Anne Louise Burdett and illustrated by Chelsea Granger. Just know that this is going to be a very long video, so check out the timestamps if you're curious. So this comes in their deluxe box that you might have seen with the Black Tarot, I believe. But yeah, this is a plant-based oracle deck. Let's see what else we have in here. This is the Forest Magic Oracle deck. This is by Nikki Vandekar, which you might have seen. She has a lot of just everything, books, decks, and journals, and all of that stuff. And I've done some previous reviews of her stuff. But this says it's a deck and guidebook for green witches. Comes in this swing tab box. And you can see here. Also, I'll go more in depth in everything when we get to that section. Ooh, here we go. This is Earth and Body, 52 Weeks of Well-Being Inspired by Nature, Jolene Hart. This is by Jolene Hart, author of the Eat Pretty series. I'm very excited to dig into this. This will be perfect for starting the year off, I suppose. Oh, here's the book that goes along with the Forest Oracle. This is Forest Magic, Rituals and Spells for Green Witchcraft by Nikki Vandekar, author of Practical Magic. Illustrated by Ellen Mannon. Hopefully I said that right. And then we have Make Your Own Magic, a Beginner's Guide to Self-Empowering Witchcraft by Amanda Lovelace. She was the creator of Princess Saves Herself in this one. Oh, the Princess Saves Herself in this one. So this is actually an advanced copy. We'll talk all about that in a second, but let me go through everything. Okay, let's look at this deck. This again is the Dirt Gems Plant Oracle Deck and Guidebook by Anne Louise Burdett, illustrated by Chelsea Granger. This, let me see here. This retails for $32 US, 41 Canadian. And you can see here the box is it's actually a very large box, but it's one of their deluxe ones, so that makes a lot of sense. And then the guidebook, actually, before we get into that, but look at the fun gems and stuff, the cool images that go throughout the box. So this is a box in a box kind of thing, so it's like boxception. The inside is just a filler. This comes out, and you can actually see the pattern goes throughout the inside of the entire box. So I'm going to just put this back in. And then the deck actually comes in a tuck box with similar patterns throughout, and orange inside. And I'm going to sit this right here. Let's look at the guidebook. So we see some more plants displayed inside. We have a quote here, and then we have a table of contents. So there are actually suits associated with this, which is actually, I really like when decks do this because I like how it plays with tarot when there are suits in Oracle decks. It's not something that a deck has to have. It's not going to make or break a deck for me, but I really do think that's a cool concept in Oracle. So it has introduction, the suits, how to use the cards, example spreads, and a few words on traditions, and then it goes into the cards. So let's see what our suits are. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. This is just the forward and talks about some of the background and stuff. So it explains that the connections between the suits and the cards are not always innately obvious, but they are basically a family for the cards within them. So it doesn't have to necessarily be an obvious example. So, for example, you may find a plant card that grows in the swamp in suit 3, the suit of the desert, because a plant's other significant qualities are related to plants in that family. So that does make it quite interesting. I don't think I would have made that choice, but it's good to know, I guess. So here we have some example spreads. We have our normal, like, card of the day, week, month kind of thing for a single card. We have our 3 card options, past, present, future. Um, it goes in here and says that you can use other aspects such as career, relationship, home, art, love, sex, money, health, family. Just, 3 aspects of one's life. Here we have a 7 card root to seed spread. So this basically identifies the foundation of what the spread is revealing. Then it kind of goes through all the way to the seed, what will be passed on, or the legacy or the next phase. It kind of gives you an idea, and it says that the cards are the root, the soil, the shoot, the sun, the flower, the fruit, and the seed. Where the fruit is the desired outcome, the flower is the intention or influence. So it's kind of cool. I always love when there are unique spreads in an oracle book. I don't use spreads often, but when they are unique, I do appreciate that thought. So we have our suits here. Let me go back to the table of contents and tell you what the suits are. We have ablaze, afloat, adrift, amidst, and I'll show you in a second, but okay, amidst is the last one. So there are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. They're colored. They're different colors. So, like, this one's rainbow, which is interesting. This one's adrift is gray, afloat is blue, ablaze is red, which makes a lot of sense. So let's go back into ablaze. Ablaze is given the following correspondences: color red or just warm colors, element of fire, energetic signature is hot, weather system is sunny, metal is gold, emotion is desire, and the landscape is mountain. And then we have the cards. So basically how it's set up is we have the card, we have or an image of the card rather. We have the name of the card and I think like the association of the card. Let me see. I'm going to go to another one. It's like the key word, I would say. If I were to give it, I would identify it as a keyword. And then it goes through like the narrative description of it. So let's go on to the next one. We have a float, which is obviously our water. This is associated with the color blue or cool tones. Element of water, energetic signature is cold, weather system is rainy or stormy, metal is silver, emotion is trust, and then the landscape is ocean. Why wouldn't fire be mountains? Why would fire be mountains and why wouldn't it be like desert? Seems strange, a strange choice. Um Again, everything is laid out the same way. We have our name, we have our keyword, and then we have the image of the card, which means this book could be used as like sort of a bibliomancy. There we go, Brett. Bibliomancy kind of way. Um, let's see. Let's go on to the third suit, which is adrift. This is associated with black and white, the element of air, and an energetic signature is dry. Weather system is windy. Makes sense. Metal is copper. Emotion is courage. And landscape is desert. See, I would switch that. Mountain makes more sense to me for fire, or for air rather, for adrift. And then what was this one? Ablaze makes more sense to be desert, especially because it says the weather system is sunny, energetic signature is hot. Whereas this one is windy. You ever stand at the top of a mountain? It's windy up there. And it's also, um, the air can be also very dry up there unless it's like snowing and stuff. But I wouldn't associate it as necessarily dry, but I think, let me see, water, energetic signature is cold. So hot, cold, dry. See, I would associate this as hot and dry, cold and wet, and then air. I don't know. I don't know how I would associate that. Let's go look at the rainbow one, which was amidst. This is the color association is rainbow, element earth. Why isn't it just green? Energetic signature is damp. Weather system is foggy, misty. Metal is brass. Emotion, joy. Landscape, forest. Okay, so water and admits make the most sense to me. But damp and foggy and misty makes so much sense, right? But adrift is windy and dry. That just feels so. Why wouldn't it just be sunny and dry? And then this one would be rainy, stormy. Dry is just so weird. I don't know why that's throwing me off. Okay, let me get over it. This probably I wouldn't use as much anyway. I would at least maybe associate it in similar aspects to tarot, where you have your earth, water, fire, and air, but probably not much deeper than that. So I like though that the color schemes go throughout the each chapter of the book. So we have a rainbow here, whereas here it was everything's black and white. Oh, and I wonder if the cards are too, or if that's just a thing in the book. I guess we'll see in the flip through. It finishes off with who we are, and then it goes into a thank you, and that is more or less it. So that is the guidebook. Like I said, I like when I could possibly use a guidebook as like its own kind of form of bibliomancy. It just adds like an extra aspect to things. So let's go in and do our flip through of the cards, and then we'll talk about the card stock. All right, that was the flip through. So we have a nice sturdy cardstock. Uh, the finish is like a coated matte, so I don't think the cards are going to be very sticky at all. They didn't seem very sticky during the flip through. It has a matte foiling around the edges. I love the matte foiling. It lasts longer, in terms of looking nicer longer. So let's see how well this shuffles. It's a little chunky because I noticed when decks come wrapped in cellophane, which this one did, sometimes it's a little, it takes a little while to break it in. These are also very, very tall cards. Makes it hard to grasp, so you can shuffle them different ways, but let's see how they riffle shuffle. Yeah, I have them right. The riffle's fine. Very hard to grasp, though. Since they're so long, it's hard for me to bridge. My hands are a little tiny, but because these cards are thicker, I think they will eventually hold a bend. They seem fine now. They're going to flay out. All cards will if you riffle, especially if you riffle and bridge. So that's not unheard of, but I'm not going to shuffle them again. But let's talk about the artwork. So on the cards, they are numbered, which I'm sure you noticed. And I'm going to try to pick out all of the suits so we can see them. Okay. One thing I didn't notice when we did before we did the flip through, like when we were going through the um, guidebook, is one, they're numbered, and two, they have the suit symbol on it. Because when I was looking through it, I was like, oh, fire and amidst seems pretty similar card wise. But now I'm noticing the fire cards have a background. Everything else seems to be black. And then you can tell the symbols by the color and just the shape if you happen to remember the shape. The artwork kind of has this nostalgic I don't know. I think I mentioned this in another flip through that this has like this childhood artwork, like this book that the artwork reminds me of, and it reminds me of that, but I'll have to admit that it's not my favorite. Not my favorite artwork. So I like that it's nostalgic though. Sometimes it's interesting because the most prevalent thing in the artwork is not necessarily the plant. So here it's like this little strip of peppermint, but then we have everything else here. So I will have to, like, as I dive into this a little more deeply, see how these other symbols correlate. Like, for instance, seaweed's a pretty dominant one. It's kind of like almost half and half, I would say. And whereas arnica here is very dominant in the artwork of this card. So it seems to vary from card to card, um, which I don't necessarily like or dislike. Just something I've noticed. Um, I do wish these had keywords on them. I would since the keywords seem to be short on the in the guidebook. I feel like they could have just maybe just downsized a little bit, raised this up, and then put the keywords where the title of the cards are. I really like Oracle cards with keywords. It's not the end of the world, but it is what it is. So if you want to use these in reverse, they are reversible on the backs without you noticing. Um, there is really no recourse for using them as like in reverse. Nothing in the guidebook is what I mean, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. So if that's something you like to do, if you like to shuffle in reversals to your Oracle cards, you can do that with this deck. So let's go ahead and look at the next thing. All right, next we have The Earth and Body, the 52 Weeks of Well-Being Inspired by Nature by Jolene Hart. This let's see, retails for 32 US and 41 Canadian. It's a 52 card um deck, and it has a full color guidebook, and it comes with a keepsake and a wooden stand. So let's see what all comes in it. Actually, let's look at the box. So this is a nice sturdy box, but you can see that it was a little hard to open. There are no thumb tabs here. So if you close the box and there's nothing in it, it might be hard to open. Here is the guidebook. This is the deck wrapped in cellophane. And then here is the little stand that it comes with. So it's a 1-card stand. Nothing fancy, just like a little birch box, or a little birch piece of wood. Really nice for like altars to set like a single card on. Actually, I have a few of these floating around, but you can honestly never have too many, especially if they come in a set. So the box is quite simple on the inside. Let's just go ahead and look at the guidebook. Okay, here is the guidebook. Oh, it smells good. We have our table of contents. Let's see. Okay, so we have our table of contents, and it looks like it gets like straight into the cards, basically. So it has a quick introduction and then just goes into the cards. All right, nice. So let's, oh, it does have a how to use this deck. That's part of the introduction. I wonder if there's, okay, and then it gets into the cards. So we have the image of the card, name of the card, the keywords or key phrase. We have the intention, and then we have the lesson. So that is probably how everything is going to be set up. Not everything is one page. Actually, in fact, none of them are. Seems that something has to be an extra page. Yeah, here we go. Oh, okay. So we have the intention, the lesson, the ritual, and the reflection. Ooh, I like that. I think this would be really fun to use for journaling prompts, actually, which I think I might do. Okay, so throughout here, we have some, like, did you know kind of additions. Like this one for the cacti says, did you know the spines and scales found on cacti are modified forms of leaves? Which I did not know. So that's kind of cool. It has little fun facts in here. Let's kind of skip through. I don't want to give everything away because then, like, why buy the book, right? Or buy the deck, rather. So here we have flowers. This is just like overall general flowers, it looks like. And then it gives like the did you know of this one is basically explaining what some flowers are like corresponded to, based off of florography. So it's so cool. All right, nice. I like this guidebook. It's a little large, so may not be totally travel friendly, but nice book nonetheless. And I like that it's fully colored, and again, it has the image on the card, so you can totally use this as its own standalone bibliomancy. So, I actually did not realize that they were gonna have like prompts on the back, or just like not prompts, but just like a quote on the back. Ah, pleasant surprise. I usually don't like that. And but because of the nature of how I want to use these cards, more so like for journaling kind of stuff, I actually do like that, because that means I don't necessarily always have to have this book with me, and I can use it in different ways. So if I say, like, for instance, say I want to use like rocks, right? I can either look at the back here, and it says, whenever I feel unmoored, I will return to the parts of my life that give me stability and strength to find my foundation. So that is the intention. The intention is on the back of the cards. But then if I want to look at more into this, like I can look at the lesson. Um, like it says here, to be a rock for yourself or someone else also requires a measure of softness, compassion, tenderness, and empathy. Rocks, though they're likely to outlast us by thousands of years, help us connect to our own strength and endurance. They give us the opportunity to hold a chunk of the earth in our hands, feeling its solidness. And then we have rituals. Spend time with rocky terrain this week, whether you hike a quarry, take a rock climbing class, or simply feel the weight of a stone in your palm. Notice the feeling of grounding and strength that comes from connecting with something so solid and durable. And then there's the reflection side of things. Take note of the habits that provide stability and strong foundation in your daily life. Is there a specific morning routine that gets you going? A spiritual practice that helps you weather ups and downs? Maybe a regular connection with a friend or loved one that makes you fulfilled and happy? So there's a lot of different aspects outside of just the prompt on the back that you can dive into, which is what I appreciate. The cards are actually very, very simple. They're a nice solid weight. The cardstock is a good thickness. It seems to be the standard coated matte of running press. Um, and there's no foiling whatsoever on the decks. So let's see how well it shuffles. Obviously, because of the words, I will not be using this deck in reverse. Ooh, that was a nice bridge. I forgot. I'm supposed to check overhand. Let's see. It's a little chunky. Not terrible for a brand new deck. But again, it came wrapped in cellophane, so that's kind of to be expected. And then riffle shuffling will break it up even further. It riffles really well. So, yeah, not too bad. So I actually really, really like this. I might add this in. No, I definitely will. I'm going to add this into the rotation of the decks that I'm going to use for journaling in 2024. All right, let's go on to the next one. Here we have the Forest Magic, the Rituals and Spells, and the Oracle by Nikki Vandekar. So the Oracle retails for 20 US and 26 Canadian. It's a 40 card deck. And then this one is 22 US and 29 Canadian. Let's go through the Oracle first, and then we will look at the book. So this comes in Running Press's swing tab box with their new setup, which I really, really like. Way better than their old setup. Their old setup is their old setup kind of had this, but instead it was like a plastic top. They were really hard to open up. So let's look at the box. Is meant to have the deck in it. I do not recommend trying to travel without it, and it's meant to have the Oracle. The guidebook rather, because without it, there's nothing keeping it from just mushing down. So, and then the interior, though I do like this box, much more flimsy. But I love that. I love this box though, because I feel like overall it's more compact and very sturdy when everything is all together. So yeah, quite nice. here we have the guidebook. This is, let's see, here's our table of contents. We have how to use the deck, and then it gets straight into the cards. So how to use the deck is pretty standard. It goes into like a 3-card pool. So basically it's past, present, future, just written out weird. And then we get into the actual card. So here we have the name of the deck, the name of the card. I believe this is probably the plant name, the photo, and then it just goes into everything about it. So yeah, that's really how it is throughout the whole thing. So you could literally, again, use this on its own, without the cards. I probably would never keep the guidebook separate just because of the way that the box is set up, but that's up to you guys. Okay, let's get ready for the flip through. I have to say, the backs of the cards are just gorgeous. Look at that. Beautiful scenery, and it's like split between like spring, maybe fall into like winter here. Gorgeous. The cardstock, I would say, is maybe a little on the thinner side. I don't mind this actually. I prefer it anyways. So the size of the cards seems very standard tarot size, actually. I think this would pair really well with my Lord of the Rings deck. I'm actually not going to do any pairings in this video, but if you would like for me to come back and do some pairings, let me know in the comments. Oh, shuffles like a dream. I will say that if you are the type of person that likes to use reversals, obviously this is not a reversible back. If that bothers you, sorry. It shuffles really well despite having been in cellophane. I actually quite like that. So let's talk about the artwork. I know that a lot of people don't like borders on cards. So it has these beige borders and then has the image on the card. We have the name, and then we have, I think this is like the Latin name for the cards. Not 100% sure. But I don't mind the borders so much, especially because thinking back, I think my Lord of the Rings also has these beige borders, which is why I think it fits that vibe. It kind of has that earthy feel. I will definitely have to check that out. But again, I do wish that there were keywords, but I also noticed that there were no keywords in the guidebooks. So, guess that's to be expected. So I'm going to go ahead, put these over here, and let's look at the book. So let's crack her open. So I don't necessarily consider myself a green witch. I don't really like the use of those labels. I could do a whole video on why I think labels are stupid, but I do enjoy the concept of what people identify green witchery as. So here we have our table of contents. We have the introduction, Women of the Woods, finding and creating your sacred grove, asking permission, crystals and forest magic, the calendar of the trees. Oh, I like that. And then the tale of the Oak King and the Holly King. So we have the Oak King here. Okay, so they are based around, it seems like the time of the day, and then the Sabbats. And then it ends with rewilding, acknowledgement and index. Okay, let's just go through. So the Women of the Woods is, I think, really a story about just a little bit of background on this. It's just talking about nature in general, our connection with it, and then we get into finding and creating your sacred grove. It says sacred groves are groups of trees that have particular importance. They can be found all over the world, including in Ireland and other Celtic regions, Germanic countries, Greece, Italy, India, Japan, Eastern Europe, North America, and West and South Africa. So it goes on to talk about a lot of the historic side of that, and just when they became or them being popular, when they kind of fell out of popularity. And then it goes on to talk about finding, choosing, and creating your own sacred grove. So sometimes it can be really simple, like stepping outside, right? And basically, some people have forests in their backyards. But me, I grew up in a cement garden. I don't have it that easy, right? So it says for others, tending a sacred grove could be a journey. And you can also think back to it challenges you to think back to periods of your life where you feel like you might have had a sacred grove, and then to kind of journal about it, about how it makes you feel. Do you still have access to it? What did you do there? Stuff like that. So then it starts to lay out how you can start to find your sacred grove. You can be really deliberate about it, where your goal is to set out to do it, or it could just be more of a allow yourself to discover it naturally by allowing yourself to be in nature, taking hikes, going on walks. Um, I will say that this can be hard to do, and it depends what you want. Like for me, um, I still live in a cement garden. I have hikeable, campable places near me, but they are not readily accessible in the sense that I could walk for maybe 10, 15 minutes and get there. It's more like I have to drive to 30 minutes to an hour to get there. And that does not feel sacred to me. It feels very inaccessible. It feels distant. So for me, what I would probably recommend, and what I have done, is create a garden, and that can be your sacred grove. It doesn't have to be a traditional grove of trees and stuff like that. Just something that makes you feel close with nature and connected in some kind of way. But it gives you some little things to think about, stuff like that. And then we get into asking for permission. So this will be really interesting for me to read about. Basically, the concept is that if you are taking something from nature, you should ask permission before doing so. I'm very weird about that because I don't really, I believe in the concept of like giving and taking, or taking and giving back, but I don't necessarily see the need to ask for permission. It delves into a level of humanization that I don't enjoy a lot, but um I think that there are still concepts in here that I can use to adapt to just my own method of connection, which is why I really enjoy my garden, because I'm giving my time and energy and putting money and my resources into a garden that then gives back to me. And I feel like it's a constant game of give and take, right? It's a two-way street. Whereas like when I'm out in nature, I don't I don't feel that connection, and it again, it could be because of my distance to it. Here we get into crystals and forest magic. So, what's interesting, and I say it all the time, I'm not really big into crystals. I like them in a sort of like goblin dragon collecting gold kind of way, but not necessarily. There are very few crystals that I use regularly. Like if you've seen some of my spells that I've done on this channel, most of them don't utilize crystals. So that being said, I did have a few friends that live very close to like obsidian quarries or quartz quarries. I think there's one near me somewhere actually where you can actually go and pick out crystals yourself. I feel like if something like that was more readily available to me, I'd probably be more inclined to build that connection. But this is kind of meaningless to me. I'm never going to go out into the forest and bring a crystal with me. That's just not something that I would do. But it does give the um, different kinds of crystals and what it can do for you. The only thing I might do is wear like crystal jewelry, but it would still be with a different intent. Here we have the calendar of the tree. This is so funny. If you saw my Witch's Moon unboxing for December, Ogum is one of the things that we got in that box. So it's like following me. Maybe that means I need to learn how to use my Ogum staves this year. So basically, different cultures use trees to track the seasons, which if you I mean, if you're like in the mid-Atlantic where I am of the US, it's very easy to do. Like it's very obvious when it's spring, it's very obvious when it's summer, very obvious when it's fall, and very obvious when it's winter in our trees. So I like how it talks about the different cultures, and I look forward to reading about how other people do them. And I just think it's so funny that we have Ogum here again. Um, we also have the zodiac of trees. So let me find me. I am okay. I am willow. I love willow trees. It like when I was a kid, I wanted a yard with a giant weeping willow where I could just have like picnics under it and sit under the tree. Like if I had my way, my sacred grove would be a giant weeping willow. Um Only accessible to me or the people that I love. So, it says for the willow has a gentle nature and a sense that all things good and bad will pass. The cycle will always continue. Their, their emotional as well as intellectual intelligence makes them successful in their career and relationships. They have extraordinary memories and can retain meaning as well as this sense of things. I don't know about good memories, but I do like the intellectual intelligence. And I hope that does make me successful in my career and relationship. So that's really cool. I might have to add these things as like more correspondences to myself in my book of shadows. And then we get into the tale of the Oak King and the Holly King. And basically what it is a story of the shifting of seasons. So it's based off of the different cultures' way of having their version of a wheel of a year kind of thing. So that's just the overview of that. Let's go into the Oak King. So the Oak King, I don't want to get into all of this because you guys have to read this book yourselves. But there are different rituals here associated with the Oak King. Here is the dawn ritual. and it's really short. I think what I like about its brevity is that you can do the basic of what it goes over, and it allows you to grow and create your own traditions off of that versus being more it's more it's more loose and open ended and allows you to create the specifics. And then we get into the different Sabbats. I don't want to go through all of them, but let's go through. We'll go through the ones we just passed Yule, so when we get to that, we'll go through that. Here's the Holly King. We are in the season of the Holly King, so that's why I wanted to skip ahead. Again, this is just talking about a little bit of background on the Holly King. And this one, instead of a dawn ritual, we have a sunset ritual. So it's about a ritual of saying farewell to the day. Let's go through and find where we are now. Okay, so we are at Yule. We just had the winter solstice pass. So all of the Sabbats have like the background, the overview, and stuff like that. And then we get into plants that thrive during this time of year. This is very much based off of the Northern Hemisphere. So, Southern Hemisphere folks, um, you will have to reverse these. I don't know in which way, but just keep that in mind. So we have elder, which makes sense because of elderberries. They're very big this time of year. We have juniper, which is an evergreen, mistletoe, obviously. And within each one, we have suggested spells that you can use with them. We have myrtle, we have pine. Myrtle's really popular for some reason as a tree. Witch hazel, uh, and yew. So then we have our midnight ritual that we can do. So this is actually this midnight ritual is basically creating a non-lethal version of the flying ointments from back in the day, and that is listed right here. So and they're all based off of a lot of the ingredients that you would find during this time of year. Has juniper, mugwort, yarrow, sage, rosemary, mint, and lavender. I think I have almost everything here. I think I have some yarrow, maybe not juniper. Here we get into rewilding. This is basically rewilding, I think, is the concept of giving yourself back to nature, embracing nature and all of that. We have the acknowledgement and then the index, which is really cool too, because if you're looking for a specific tree or something like that, you can go right there to it. All right, so that is the book. Let's go on to the last book. We're almost done, guys. So finally, we have the Make Your Own Magic book. This is a beginner's guide to self-empowering witchcraft by Amanda Lovelace. She is the best-selling author of The Princess Saves Herself in this one. So this actually goes on sale March 24th, March 2024. Sorry, I gotta get used to that. This is actually an advanced copy. So I think I will actually, since I have more time, I will go through it preliminarily with you guys, but it'll give me time to actually read through it, and right before it goes out I can do a more deeper overview of the book. So this, once it's officially out for release, it will retail for 20 US and $26 Canadian. So let's go through. I will say, since this is a preprint, a lot of times preprints are on lower quality paper. So if the images don't seem to pop as much, don't hold it against the book. You will see better pictures when it gets closer to the release. So the table of contents, we have the note from the author, the basics, intuition, your cycle, more magic, and then references. I like when a book has references. So we have the note from the author. I'm going to keep going and get into the basics. So one of the things, because I said it's on lower quality paper, I can't give you an idea of the, I think it says that it will be paper overboard. I don't know what that is. I don't know my species of paper, so sorry guys. Okay, so Luna wanted to join me for this last bit. So this is the basics, right? So it goes over, so what makes a witch? Can I be a witch? How do I make magic? I like that she clearly lays out witch, pagan, and Wiccan. So she describes a witch just as someone who practices witchcraft, often includes casting spells, taking part in rituals, and working in tune with nature. And she goes on to explain that witchcraft isn't necessarily religious. People of any religion or lack thereof can be witches. Pagan is someone who practices a pagan religion. Pagan is an umbrella term that encompasses many nature based religions. Um, and she does admit she's oversimplifying here, but she says to oversimplify, pagans often honor more than one god and or goddess. This is called oh gosh, I can never say this out loud. Polytheism. And many, but not all pagans practice witchcraft and consider themselves witches as well. So some people consider themselves pagan witches. Finally, Wiccan is someone who follows the Wicca religion, a branch of paganism founded in the mid 1900s. Sorry. Um, Wiccans often, but not always, believe in a dual god and goddess and live by a set of principles called the Wiccan Rede. Though many Wiccans practice witchcraft and call themselves witches, not all do. So there's like a little box here that's like still confused. It says, like all Catholics are Christians, all Wiccans are pagans. Like, not all Christians are Catholic, not all pagans are Wiccan. Though it often is the case, not all pagans and Wiccans are witches or practice magic. Anyone can be a witch, not just pagans or Wiccans, regardless of their religion. So I really like the dedication to this. Um, this is the definition that she uses for pagan is the exact definition that I use for pagan. I'm curious if others have like a slightly different one. I probably will disagree, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts on it are, just because I know that there are differences or people have a differing set of opinions. So here we start to talk about your magical journal. She mentions that this is your grimoire or your book of shadows, but she likes to use the term magical journal. I don't like that term. I like book of shadows. Then there's a magical journal prompt here, which I love because if you're trying to get started, at least you have something. This book is providing something. You have your altar, how to handle not being accepted. I think that is actually not talked about. I don't think I've ever personally read a book about that. More so, people come to forums or Facebook groups because of that, and you hear opinions or suggestions from people. But I've never seen that in the book. This is about making your magical altar you more so. And then it goes into magical tools. So we have your journal, your magical journal, aka Book of Shadows, a pen or paper, sheets of scrap paper, a white candle, a lighter or matches, candle snuffer, candle wick trimmer. Actually, candle wick trimmers and trimming your candle wicks is grossly under represented. You should always be trimming your candles, spell or otherwise, just your candles in general. Before lighting them, you should always be trimming them, even if they're brand new. The only exception to this rule might be woodwick, but I think after you burn a woodwick candle, you should still trim it. So we have all-purpose tools, personal correspondences. Um, I like that this introduces early on how you can make things you, right? A lot of things correspondences are, yeah, for for the most part, everybody agrees that rosemary could be used for protection, but maybe you have a different experience with that creates another correspondence that you use it for. We get into candle types, which is basically talking about the candle colors and what they can be used for. Same with the flowers and herbs, and now with crystals. It explains what happens with a crystal, like, or why your crystal breaks or disappears. Goes through cleansing your crystals, cleansing yourself, and then gets into connecting with the earth, or respecting the earth, I should say. I like too that I've been noticing throughout all of these pages, there are magical journal prompts associated with a lot of these sections. You have a magical journal prompt here about your cleansing, a journal prompt about connecting more with the environment. Then we get into shapes. We talk about the pentacle. This calls this a pentacle, but I feel like this is actually the pentagram, because I thought the pentacle was encompassed in a circle, but it talks about the 5 points of the pentagram. We have earth, we have fire, water, air, water, and then it mentions up here. It doesn't. Oh yeah, it doesn't list it out, but it explains that the last one is spirit, and that can represent many things. Talks about using earth as your magical altar, using earth in your rituals, such as grounding. Okay, here we go. I think I did a video, I think, talking about this, or maybe it was when my friend and I had dreams of grandeur of doing a podcast. She mentions that white magic versus black magic is not an okay concept. She explains that words have a lot of weight, and they reflect and influence the society that we live in, with a lot of injustice, and the racial implications of these phrases are not in line with my personal or witchcraft ethics, and therefore I choose not to use them. Um, I 100% agree. White versus black magic is an old term. Black magic was coined by Hollywood to disenfranchise and make fun of a lot of times, African and Native traditions, and villainize them. This probably started before Hollywood, but Hollywood really made those things catch, in the same way that Hollywood also made Ouija boards scary to people. That kind of thing. So I personally don't condone those terms. I will not take kindly to people using them in reference to my practice, and I tend to not associate with people that willingly use them. So there we go. Learned a boundary about me. We have witchcraft and gender, just explaining that um, witchcraft is genderless, more or less. And I like these like quotes throughout here too. I feel like this is going to be a really nice book. Um, it goes into your witchcraft ethics. I have a video talking about this. Um, I don't think that this is discussed enough. So she starts off by saying, I can't tell you what kind of magic to make because I believe in the importance of free will. And that's because I believe in the importance of free will that I will choose not to interfere with the free will of other people. That means no love spells or curses. You won't find either of those in this book. And that's okay. I totally think that's okay. I love when people are very clear about their line of ethics. And I think that um, I'm a little in between her. I also agree that love spells are just insane. And people that use them, she's not going to judge, but I will judge. I don't agree with them. But I think curses are fine. I totally subscribe to the talk shit, get hit kind of mentality. So, yeah, I think that sometimes bad people deserve the justice that has come to them. And in hoodoo, a lot of times, a lot of people subscribe to the concept of like what people have considered westernized karma, like eventually what comes around goes around. But in hoodoo, a lot of times we consider ourselves the karma. So what goes around comes around because I'm making that happen. You know what I mean? Anyways, off of my tangent. So, we have like before you get into doing spells, starting your first spell, things that you'll need. A lot of this is very prescriptive. You don't necessarily have to do this. Oh my God, this person is really like on it. So, this is talking about witchy labels. Some people like to use specific labels to describe what kind of witch they are, such as green witch or sea witch, blah blah blah. And then she says, you don't have to label yourself right now. You don't have to label yourself by the time you're done reading this book either. Honestly, you don't have to label yourself ever if you don't feel called to. Let yourself explore this magical world first. If you do eventually decide to label yourself, perhaps because it helps you feel more connected to your practice, then that's awesome. Just know that it's okay to change your mind later. It's okay to keep the label too. And I love that. I personally think labels are stupid, but I'm not an author of this book. I'm literally just chick on the internet giving my opinion about stuff. And I think that they're silly for a lot of the reasons that she's explaining why you don't have to do things right now. I find that they're very limiting for newer witches. And speaking of newer witches, it goes into the term baby witch. So she takes the opinion that a lot of people do. She says, in my own experience, using the baby witch label can be very limiting and disempowering. She explains, I used that term for myself for way too long, mostly because I felt like I wasn't good enough or experienced enough to call myself a witch, even though I most definitely was after a certain point. And then she goes on to say, I was always good enough, and so are you. So she explains that in her own experience, using the baby witch label can be very limiting and disempowering. I used that term for myself for way too long, mostly because I felt like I wasn't good enough or experienced enough to call myself a witch, even though I most definitely was after a certain point. I was always good enough, and so are you. Moral of the story, if it doesn't make you feel good, don't do it. But sometimes, you know, I think that what I don't like in this discourse of baby witch versus not baby witch is the people that kind of are on their high horse about it. Like, I think that labels are stupid, including baby witch. Like, I think the whole thing, the whole concept of labeling oneself to such a fine, minute degree is unnecessary. But some people get benefit out of that, and despite my own judgments about it, they benefit off of it. I find overall it hinders more than it benefits, and there's a small subset of people versus a large subset of people that it does not benefit, or it does benefit rather. So but I will say that I don't like how people that are more deep into they're further along in their journey will hold that term against people. Like, I've seen people say that they refuse to help people that call themselves a baby witch. I'm like, that's literally not helpful. Like, that's very isolating. And how can they grow out of that if you're not willing to help them? I do love the people that explain it in the way that she does, in saying that she feels that, a witch is a witch is a witch. And you don't have to put this disclaimer on it for fear of feeling not enough. So she has this feeling confident yet part, which I feel like a lot of people, I have nicknamed them lovingly armchair witches, who basically only read and never actually do workings, because of the fear of doing something wrong. So they're always in this reading phase and never in the doing phase. But the thing is, it's a practice. So how do you get better if you don't practice, It goes through here we talk about your intuition, talk about divination, um, you know, questions about being a psychic, and then telling the future. I like that she explains that no one can predict the future with complete and 100% certainty. That's a fact. We can't. The future is nebulous, it's not set in stone. Small little things will cause huge ripples that we simply cannot 100% account for. So it just starts to talk through, like, how do you consider the future? How do you consider fate? Where do you fall in the spectrum of that understanding? Um, I like that specifically we talked about witchcraft ethics, right? And now we're talking about divination ethics, which can be very similar, most likely are going to be very similar within an individual person. but there is a difference. And I think that it's important to define that. One of the key things in divination ethics is the should you read about people without their consent. And that manifests in a lot of different layers that exceed the topic of this video. Um, Maybe I'll do a whole separate video on this, but basically, she says that she strongly cautions against doing readings about others unless they give you explicit permission to do so. It all boils down to consent and your level of consent within your divinatory practice and your witchcraft practice. That's ultimately where the ethics start to boil into. It's a level of your boundaries and a level of your consent combined together. We get into tarot misconceptions. Ooh, I love that. I mean, classic. You don't have to be given your first deck as a gift. It's not bad luck to buy your own. I didn't know that it was a misconception, but she says you're allowed to read for yourself. I had no idea that people didn't think that you should do that. I just know people struggle to do that, so they tend not to. Another one is you don't have to memorize the card meanings. I talk about that a lot, the gatekeeping within the tarot world. And when I say gatekeeping, I feel like this is a very nuanced discussion, so I don't want to dive too far into it, but it almost makes it feel like if you ever look at a guidebook, you're not a tarot reader, which is just unfair for people, right? And also, it's a little ableist because some people just have really, they have like medical memory issues. So they understand things and seeing words triggers like other things. And I feel like that should be okay. We have the tower structure. Not going to get into that. Just goes into the majors versus minors. Tarot meanings. Picking your first deck. I do wish. I don't know how deep this. I don't know how deep Amanda is into the struggles of the tower world, but I do wish she mentioned about being wary of picking out counterfeit decks by mistake, and also the ethics of purposefully buying um, counterfeit decks. That's a huge topic in the tower sphere, in the tower community right now. These are the overall meanings of the cards, broken up into majors, minors, and then the minor suit. Um, Things that you'll need for your first tarot reading. I don't personally agree with this. Tarot is not witchcraft. You don't need to make a whole ritual of it. Um, what you'll need for your first tarot reading is a tarot deck, and that is it. As you get better with tarot or become more comfortable, I should say, you might have like a little ritual that gets you into the mood to do readings, or you might find that you never need to do any of that. And both options are okay. I just hate when people start off with like, okay, to do tarot, you need to grab your crystal, you need to light a candle, you need to cleanse your space. Like, no, just grab your deck, shuffle the cards, pull some cards, and there you go. You did your reading. We have building a daily practice with some ideas for cards. We have a 3-card spread to remind you of your purpose. So card 1 is what's your purpose. Card 2, which action can I take right now in order to live up to my fullest potential? And card 3 is a message to empower me on my current path. I really like tarot when it is empowering and gives power to the current, or if the current is also the reader, power to yourself. You can incorporate divination into magic, into witchcraft. So one of them is daily magic. And what you can do is use that card purposefully. So it's not a divinatory thing that you're doing. You're purposefully picking out a card that you want to represent the energy for the day. And that is how you're like, it's almost like a beacon to draw that energy in. You can also use it for journaling, which can also be a combination of like shadow work, which is not witchcraft. Even though a lot of people tend to synonymously say that you need to do shadow work in order to be a witch, that's not true. But you can use it for journaling, shadow work, that kind of thing, the betterment of yourself. And then we have actual spell work. So spell work is similar to the daily magic, where you pull out a card to represent the energy that you were trying to invite into the spell, or maybe to give strength to repel that specific energy. And you can use that to represent that in your ritual or your spell. So we have tarot for self-confidence. This is a spell. This is a tarot spell. So this is using spell work and divination combined. It starts to talk about oracle cards. She does give a very clear answer between oracle and tarot. We have more magical journal prompts. Loving this. We have a check-in oracle spread, also using 3 cards. And then you can also use you can use oracle as a affirmation ritual. So this would include, your oracle, a piece of paper, and a writing utensil. And all you really do is you're writing down that affirmation. It introduces pendulums, how to pick out a pendulum, your first pendulum session. And again, what you'll need for your first pendulum session: your pendulum and a clear quartz crystal. No, all you need is your pendulum. That's it. And then here you can start to expand upon the pendulum, including it into tarot and oracle readings, double checking with yourself, making decisions. I like to use pendulums. Well, I used to like to use pendulums before I got into like the yes no coin. It's so much easier. Very clear cut, whereas pendulums can be a little like unclear in their answers. And then it talks about other divination methods. Bibliomancy, I mentioned that on my channel a lot. Cloud gazing, which is a type of scrying, I believe. And then shufflemancy. I honestly despise shufflemancy. I don't know why. I don't know why, guys. I should probably do shadow work about it, but I'm not. I can't stand it. But shufflemancy is basically using like shuffling music and whatever song comes up, like listening to it, how it makes you feel, what lyrics stand out to you, that kind of thing. We have an intuition game. I don't like that. I don't like the concept of using intuition as a game, because it's not a game. Intuition is usually like a level of your understanding of things plus like instinct. So you can't really make that a game, right? And you'll see like for instance, you'll see on TikTok like, what crystal am I holding? Like intuition test. That's not how you can test intuition. That doesn't make sense. You can test intuition by practicing and reflecting back on whether you were right or wrong, or where you were right, where you were wrong, that kind of thing. I don't like this concept of intuition anyways. It's kind of gotten into, it's a whole different tangent. I won't even go down it. We have intuitive struggles. She does explain truthfully that working on your intuition, it's a very large thing. Most of it can't be contained in one book, let alone a tiny section of a book. So at least she's open and honest about that. So I decided to go back. I wanted to see what her definition of intuition was. And I also want to look up just some other definitions real quick. So this says the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It goes on, a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. So the theme is that it's just not conscious reasoning, but there's still reasoning going on based off of your experiences with things. But her examples don't match that. So she describes intuition as saying, have you ever has there ever been a time when you knew something without actually knowing it? A gut feeling you couldn't shake no matter how hard you tried, even though there was no logical reason behind it, just an unexplainable knowing with no fear. Um, that is not how I describe intuition. And I hesitant to say that this is a wrong concept of intuition. I feel like this is more talking about like the clairs, like clairvoyance and clairsensing and stuff like that, which is different than intuition. So, like, it gives an example thinking of someone you know and getting a text from them a few minutes later. That's not intuition. Canceling plans because something doesn't feel quite right and later finding out that something less than ideal happened en route. I don't like these examples. Buying a book because you can sense you're supposed to read it and it changes your life. There's so many aspects. Okay, the book example is perfect. There's so many aspects to a book, right? You see a title, you see pictures, you might read a little bit of the synopsis, um, something might catch your eye, but you're not consciously aware that this is processing in your brain because maybe the title has keywords in it that match other things that have been important to you, or something that has been become important to you in your life and you need help with it, or whatever. It- it's that is intuitive, but the others are not. So I wanted to go back and look at that because I just felt like the examples, the things that the intuition game is really what triggered that, kind of made my spidey senses go off. I personally feel like it's hard to learn intuition from a book, especially because your intuition on different things can be different. Your intuition on tarot is going to be a little different than your intuition on divination. Your intuition on what herb to pick for a spell is going to be a little different than your intuition on what crystal to pick for a spell versus what route you should drive down to get to work. They're all different things, and they're all based off of your experiences and your understanding of the world around you at such a ingrained level that you don't have to think about it anymore. I feel like a good example of this is like farmers, people that just know their land really well, how they respond to the seasons, and how people can tell that it's about to rain, or how they can tell that a big storm is coming, stuff like that. I don't know. I don't like the woo side of this intuition thing. So we get into cycles here, broken up into weekly cycles. I assume monthly coming next. Oh, we have. Ooh, okay. So this expands on like spells for the week. I like that. Okay. And we're back. So we have the weeks here. And then we get into moon cycles, which I guess could be considered monthly, but it's not necessarily. Um, you you guys already know I have living lunarly. I love moon stuff. So this section is totally my jam. I love that there are cards representative of like the different phases of the moon. There are I believe there are spells. Let me see. Or maybe it's just divination. But then they have journal prompts. Some there are spells for some things. Journal prompts, I believe, for all of them, and then card spreads. Okay, and then we get into the seasonal holiday cycle, broken up. Starts with Yule with the winter solstice, and then goes into Imbolc, Astara, Beltane, Litha, which is the summer solstice. Lunasa, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm so sorry, guys. Mabon, and then ends with Samhain. Interesting because I always thought the Wheel of the Year started with Samhain. So, I mean, I honestly, I'm not big into the Sabbats anyway. It's a very pagan thing that I don't really involve myself in. But I like, though, there are spells associated with these, more journal prompts and tarot spreads. So if the wheel of the year and celebrating the Sabbats is up your alley, you have kind of everything you need in this section. Um, it's a short section, but I think it's a great way to get started. And then as you do, I know there are actual books based, like the sole purpose of the book is this section is celebrating the Sabbats. And then finally we have part 4, more magic. So this is where you just are given different spells. Spells to banish your insecurities. I love that. Journal prompt for different things. Tarot spreads as well. So if you're the type of person that does want to incorporate tarot into your craft, I think that this book helps you build a practice around that. Spell to stop doom scrolling. Yeah, I love that. It is nightmarish and apocalyptic as the news has been lately. This is kind of nice. I like that we get into potions. So T spell to calm the F down. Spell to focus on what matters. I love this. Spell to own your spell to own your amazingness. Self-forgiveness. Spell to be a lucky bitch. Love it. Oh, a simmer pot to be a happy witch. Now this is up my alley. So you would need orange slices, cinnamon stick, cloves, and a large spoon. So actually that's pretty easy to get. The only thing I wouldn't naturally have in my house at any given time are oranges because it's a fresh fruit. But I like that. Ooh, a coffee spell for anything I want. And they have a card spread as well. So if you're not sure, you feel like something's missing and you kind of want to do like guidance, we have card 1. What do I want to achieve the most right now? Card 2. How can I energize myself to go after it? And that can give you the direction you need to stir that intention into your coffee and good to go. And then it has creating your own spells here. I love this. I cannot express in words how much I love this. I think that spell books tend to lack this part where they give you a spell. It's just a book of spells, but there has to come a point where you make things your own and you start to build things up from scratch. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I will still go to a spell book to get like ideas and a starting point, especially if I don't have a clear idea. And then I will build off of that once I have a foundation. And I think that having these as like a stepping stone to start to build your own is really great. I love that she scribbled out goodbye. See you some other time, whether it's within these pages or in brand new ones. Love that. Okay. So there. Oh, okay. Only one reference. That's interesting. I'll have to look into that later. So I have to say that while I didn't agree with everything, and honestly, when it comes to witchcraft, you kind of really never will, especially when it's something that it's supposed to have a lot of different topics all in one. Uh, I really like this. I think she touches on some really important parts of the craft, and I'm looking forward to diving into this a little more deeply, especially certain parts. So I may not dive into everything. Like I've been reading tarot long enough that I probably will not dive into that section. Tarot and divination, probably don't need to, but I do want to dive into her thoughts on some of the other things that I kind of almost went on tangents, or no, I definitely went on tangents about. So you guys have to let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited about this book? Let me know in the comments. All right, this is the entire unboxing. This was a super long video, so hopefully you stuck with me. If you want to see some pairings with this, let me know. Or I guess pairings with anything. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments. Check out my other flip throughs for ideas of what to pair these with. If you want to see the more in-depth review of this, make sure you are subscribed, hit that notification bell. And same thing with this one as well. I need to dive into that a little more deeply. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.